What's going on, guys? So we are continuing along this short series talking to you about things that you might see on and around RVs and inside of RVs whenever you're out shopping for an RV, because a lot of the stuff can kind of be confusing, and when you take a look at it, you're like, well, why is that there? Why does that belong there? What do I need that for? And we're going to talk about it. The first video, we went over some of the outside of the RV. We walked around the RV. We talked about things like your slide out awnings. We talked about things such as your landing gear and your auto leveling system and what a drop frame is versus a standard straight frame. Go back and check out that video. We go over a lot of interesting points that are definitely worth noting and worth understanding if you're going to go out shopping for an RV. This is part 2. We're going to continue along that line. Hang tight. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're in front of the Surveyor as well as our Brookstone, a travel trailer, and a fifth wheel. So a fifth wheel, again, is going to have this upper deck section right here, which connects over the back axle of your vehicle. You're going to have less sway, but fifth wheels are going to be heavier, typically longer and taller than most travel trailers. Not all of them, but most of them. Anyways, continuing along, we'll use both of these RVs as an example. So underneath here are what are called propane tanks or propane cans. They come generally in either 20, 30, or 40-pound tanks. Now, the tank itself is not factored into that weight. So when you think a 20-pound propane can or propane tank, it's the material inside of the tank that weighs 20 pounds. The actual tank itself probably weighs about 10 to 15 pounds by itself empty, and they go up incrementally as the tanks get larger. But this specific RV has a cover covering both of them. You can unscrew these little pieces right here or loosen them, and then you can pop them off so you can look at the top cap, which gives you access to your propane cans right here. This specific unit has twin 20-pound cans. So this is a 20-pound can, and that's a 20-pound can. Exactly the same type of propane can that you would go to a gas station, to Lowe's, Home Depot, to buy or exchange whenever you're cooking with a barbecue pit. So just think about that. 20-pound cans are the ones that you typically would have next to your gas or your propane barbecue pit. Now, again, once you fill it full of propane, then you're going to have a much heavier item than what it would be empty. So typically about 35 pounds for a 20-pound can whenever it's full. About 15 pounds for the can itself, and about 20 pounds for the material inside of it. Now, we're going to walk over to the Brookstone right here, which also has 20-pound propane cans, right? And these are kind of an illusion right here. They don't actually hold the propane can in place. You have to be able to access them in an event of an emergency, and you're not supposed to have locks, but they definitely act as a deterrent. So I don't not recommend putting them on. Just be sure that you could still access and take off the propane can without the lock or with the lock being in place. But these are 30-pound propane cans. The big difference, they're about 5 inches taller. So you have about a 5, maybe 6-inch height difference between the two cans versus a 20-pound and a 30-pound can. A 40-pound can, very similarly, is going to look the same, except it's probably going to be another 4 or 5 inches taller than a 30-pound can. But again, the weight of the can full of propane is not going to be the size of the propane can in general. So again, this is a 30-pound propane tank or propane can. It's going to weigh closer to 55 pounds whenever it's completely full. And a 40-pound propane can is going to weigh closer to 60 pounds when it's completely full. Now, while I'm here, I figure I might as well mention something that I did not talk about in the first video, and that is hydraulic versus electric leveling systems on fifth wheels. You're really not going to have an option for a hydraulic leveling system or front tongue jack on a travel trailer, but on a fifth wheel, it is certainly going to be one or the other. Whenever you look at electronic leveling, which is what we have, your front legs right here, these front jacks, are typically going to be a square tube, and you can see that here. Whenever you look at hydraulic leveling, they're typically going to have round tubes up front that look like this. Now, I have no idea why they don't make an electronic leveling system that has the round tubes up front. But the front two jacks are typically, at least at the time of shooting this video, indicative of what type of system you have. If they're square tubes like this, it's an electronic leveling system. If they're round tubes, it's a hydraulic leveling system. The difference between the two in terms of performance, Well, one's a lot faster than the other. Hydraulic systems are significantly faster and more powerful than their electronic counterparts. But the difference here for me is electronic, which is more than adequate for the size of RVs are typically installed on, to me are more serviceable. And what do I mean by that? Again, if we get into this front storage here, you'll see the motor head right here, and you'll see plugs. If I need to change this system out for whatever reason, I can simply replace this motor head assembly right here. I don't have to tap off or cut off any type of hydraulic lines. I don't have to have any experience with a hydraulic system at all. With this, I simply unplug these connectors right here. I swap out the motor head and I am back in business. I don't have to do anything else to the RV. If you have a hydraulic issue, sometimes that hydraulic issue, especially if it's a leak, will cause the jack leg itself to completely collapse. Now, that's not a common thing, so don't think if you see a hydraulic system on a fifth wheel, you should run away from it. As a matter of fact, most of your premium fifth wheels are going to come with hydraulic leveling systems. A few of them don't, but most of them do. And the main reason for that is as RVs get heavier and heavier and heavier, they go with a system that's stronger and faster. And a hydraulic system is certainly going to be stronger and faster. And they are serviceable. In my opinion, they're just not as easily serviceable to a user as an electronic jack is. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, next we're going to talk about your power disconnect. This is something that's really important, and thankfully you're starting to see it on a lot of newer RVs as you walk through dealership lots. A lot of manufacturers are just including them now versus not having them at all. What is a power disconnect? Well, it's this piece right here. And this right here is a marine style power disconnect. They generally look the same or similar. Some look a little different. The knob might be a little different. It might be a switch versus a knob. But this is something that you generally see on boats. And now it's becoming very popular as just an OEM included item on RVs. But again, typically in the past, you had to add these yourself, and that is definitely a pain. It's an easy process to do, but when you add it, it's typically because you've come out to your RV in storage and your battery's dead. And you don't know why your battery's dead. So you add a power disconnect to be able to shut off all power from your battery to prevent what's called a parasitic draw. A parasitic draw is the fact that there's something in your RV that's running all the time, running off of power, typically. Whether it's a smoke alarm, whether it's a TPMS system, which is what this is tied into, the tire pressure monitoring system, it's the booster antenna, whether it's a light that you just don't know is on, and it slowly drains your battery. And as it drains your battery, well, you come back to your RV, you may not have enough power to actuate your tongue jack up front. You may not have enough power to lower or raise your landing gear if it's a fifth wheel. So a parasitic draw is something that you want to try to eliminate. We keep our power disconnect on out here because we're connected to full-time power, so we don't have to worry about a parasitic draw. Our battery is constantly being charged by shore power. But when our RV was in storage, there were times that we came out there and the battery was completely dead. With solar systems that are now coming more and more standard on RVs, it's not as common to come out to a dead battery because solar is constantly charging it. But if you keep your RV in covered storage and you don't have sunlight hitting those panels, then your battery likely is going to have some type of parasitic draw unless you have a power disconnect. Power disconnect simply enables me to turn off the battery and disconnect any draw from that battery at all. So the battery is essentially sitting static with nothing pulling from it. And that allows the battery to last much longer. And it doesn't completely eliminate the chance that you'll come out to a dead battery, but it greatly reduces it. But again, we keep our power on, mainly because, again, we're constantly charging this battery because it's connected to shore power through a charging system that maintains the battery. Now, this is a topic I've talked about a lot, and I always talk about it briefly whenever I'm walking around RVs, but it's RV tires. So, in my opinion, there's no reason why manufacturers should be putting cheaper RV tires on their RVs at this point. There's so many reputable brands that have a reputation for quality in terms of how they manufacture their tires, where they manufacture their tires, and just how their tires hold up over time, and how they hold up over heat, dust, shock, vibration, all the things that tires have to always go through whenever they're rolling down the road. I generally expect an RV to have a good quality tire whenever you buy it. Now, does that mean that if you have a tire that's not quite as known for a quality reputation that you have to replace it immediately? Generally, no. Generally, you can get by with a couple thousand miles on brand new tires that aren't expired, that have a less than reputable name to them. And let me talk about that. So this is a Goodyear Endurance tire. It is a quality tire. It's going to be more expensive tire than most of the tires you're seeing, at least most of the cheaper tires you're seeing on an RV. But that doesn't mean every tire on this RV is a Goodyear Endurance tire. So we have the Goodyear Endurance right here, but on the back, we have a Castle Rock ST tire. Now, is this a horrible tire in my opinion? It's pretty close to it. I'm not a fan of Castle Rock tires. I do not believe that this is the tire that should be on the running tires of this RV whenever you're pulling it down the road initially. As a spare, I think it's okay. As a spare, it'll probably get me where I need to go to change the tire out. But I would still actually prefer a Goodyear tire as a spare, because you may not get to a point to where you can change your tire out for 1,000 miles. I hope you can find a discount tire, somebody before you get there, but you may not be at a point to where you can change your tire out before then. And if that's the case, you at least want to know that you're riding on a good quality tire. Now, there are good quality tires that you may have never heard of before, like Hercules makes a good quality tire, Transeagle makes a good quality tire, Carlisle makes a good quality tire, Provider makes a good quality tire. But there are a lot of brands of tires that you've probably never heard of, like Castle Rock, Rainier, a couple of these other brands that, in my opinion, are not the tire that you should have on the RV touching the ground when you get it. As a spare, it's probably fine, but as a primary tire, I wouldn't keep those on long term. I would find a plan, or at least start budgeting to replace those tires whenever you can, because a higher quality tire gives you so much more confidence whenever you're towing on a longer trip, just to not worry as much about if the tire is going to fail on you and what's going to happen. Now, you can never control those circumstances completely. There are always things in the road that can make your tire blow out. There are always circumstances that can happen, especially if you're going through areas that are known to have a lot of nails in the road, maybe a place that just, had a hurricane or some type of a windstorm. But again, just keep in mind that a higher quality, better branded tire is something that I expect to see on most new RVs, and I think most people walking through dealership lots want to know that the manufacturer put a good quality tire on the side of the RV that's touching the ground. What I mean is an actual active tire, not a spare tire, because I think it makes a lot of sense for you to shop and expect to see that. Okay, so this next one's going to be a little confusing for some folks. When I walk around to the back of the RV, I always focus on things back here, like your lights, your bumper, if you have something hanging off of the bumper, if there's any access doors, things like that. But the other thing I always talk about is if it's prepped for a backup camera and if it has a walk-on roof with a ladder. Typically, if you have a spot for a ladder, your RV is rated to be able to walk on. You can actually walk on the roof. It's designed to be able to support you, at least one person, in the event you need to get up there and do your servicing. Now, a lot of RVs in the past came with these ladders. The ladders were very, very common, very popular. Most RVs, I would say, came with them. Some RVs didn't. They had no ladder. You had to put your own ladder, but they would advertise that it had a walk-on roof. What you're starting to see more and more often now is this Lippert on-the-go prep. What is that? That on-the-go prep is essentially a plastic bracket that's attached to the back wall of your RV, and it goes into some of the supporting braces that are inside of the wall here, and it gives you the ability to use a telescoping ladder to attach to it. Now, Lippert has one that has two little L brackets, or angle brackets, that connect directly to the two slots right there, but in my opinion, you don't really need that ladder. You could get an aftermarket ladder or another ladder, build brackets yourself, or even just be careful whenever you set the ladder up against the roof to climb on top. What this basically enables you to do is to stand a little bit more confidently on the ladder and know that it's not going to slide side to side. But again, the ladder that you're not seeing on RVs is basically this prep that's replacing it, and then you have to go out and buy the on-the-go ladder, which is one of those, again, telescoping ladders that has a couple brackets to hold on to there. But if you see this at a dealership lot, that's what it's for. It's basically prep for an aftermarket ladder that you have to purchase. And then to wrap this video up, we'll talk a little bit about what you see on this sidewall here. We have a couple outside marine style speakers. Don't ever expect your speakers to sound fantastic that come on an RV. If they do, well, that's a bonus. And a good example of that is the Brookstone that we have, as well as the Chaparral. The sound system actually sounded fantastic. It was really, really good, even though I'm sure the speakers were pretty cheap speakers. That said, it did sound good. These speakers sound okay. They don't sound what I would say subpar. They actually sound okay. They're pretty good speakers. So the speakers you see here are controlled by your entertainment system on the inside, where you can select your inside or outside speakers, or both of them at the same time, which is a really nice feature. And typically they're marine rated, so they're going to be speakers that are designed to be in a wet environment, because they're definitely going to get wet. Above it, you see this light strip that's currently turned on. We call that an LED light strip, and it's attached to the bottom of your awning. Now, this awning right here is an electronic awning. It's a 12-volt awning, which means it runs off of your battery and not through an inverter, which is a good thing, which means you can use it even if you don't have a powerful inverter in your RV. And this awning extends out probably about 8 to 9 feet, and it covers a good area. But you also have to understand that these are not designed to be used in high wind environments. If it's a really windy day, you want to pull that awning in, and you don't want to believe that just because it can tilt and it can drain water off of it and things like that, that you should use it in windy, storm type environments. It's just not designed for that. So no matter what anybody tells you, it's not designed for that. The LED light strip is just designed to provide illumination down to the side of your RV and out under your awning whenever the awning is out, and it actually provides a fair amount of illumination even if the awning is in. This light you see right here is called a porch light. Most RVs have it, some RVs don't have it, but I would probably say 99% of RVs are going to have some type of a porch light. It's a less intense light that's just designed to give you illumination at night if you're going to be walking up to your RV in the dark. It's the light that most people would say you can keep on if it's nighttime at a campground. You don't have to turn that one off. In some cases, if it's really intense, you do want to turn it off because it can definitely annoy people that are around you. The LED light strip, on the other hand, or any other lighting on your RV, you want to understand the type of environment you're in. And if you're around, a campground with a lot of rules and that it needs to be dark whenever it gets dark outside, then you're going to want to turn that lighting off. Some campgrounds, though, they're very luxurious. They're very resorty. They have a lot of lights, a lot of street lights, a lot of LED lighting are already in the campground itself. There's a couple that I've been to that are more like resorts. I don't think it's as big of a deal, but that's what this light is for. It's basically to give you a lot more light in this entire area right here. And this one right here is just your porch light. It's just to keep a light on so you have some visibility if you're walking back to your RV and it's dark outside. Anyways, that's going to wrap up this video. I like to focus in, and I'm really trying to get granular with some of the detail on some of this stuff. That's why this is a multi-video series, so we can actually get a little bit more in depth into the things that we're talking about. Next video, we'll finish up on the exterior of the RVs, and then we'll make our way inside of the RVs, and we'll start talking about some of the things that you can expect to see whenever you go into an RV. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we will talk to you again very soon.